Hello and good morning, everyone. OnlyPositivity here. I have my coffee with me, ready to explore this new phase of life with you all. So over the past few years, I have gained a whole new perspective on life, and I've realized that life is too short to not be enjoying yourself while doing great things. So come along with me as I explore this new lens through fitness, photography, reading, traveling, cannabis, and much more. Looking forward to the journey, guys. And remember, only positivity. Hello and good morning, everyone. OnlyPositivity here. I have my coffee with me, ready to kick off podcast number 74 on this playlist that I'm looking to launch called Elevated Thoughts. Now, before diving into the book and everything like that for today, let's go and start with the level set. So, as I endeavor upon pursuing knowledge and life experience in this next phase of life through fitness, photography, cannabis, traveling, many more things, one habit that I've really formed is reading. So this podcast essentially goes through some of the books I've been reading as of late, taking those lessons learned and applying them to experiences in my life. So again, before diving into the book and everything like that for today, we'll start with the little story. Now, not necessarily a funny story for today, but an important one nonetheless. So, a couple weeks back, my grandmother actually passed away, which was kind of sad, and I got a call from my aunt, really early in the morning, around 4 a.m., letting me know that, my grandma had passed. And so immediately I, headed out to the East Coast to go visit my family and, help out with funeral preparations or just, be there. So, everyone handles death differently and, myself included. So, I didn't find myself too hysterically upset, but more pensive, just thinking, reflecting and things like that. So it's, it's hard to tell what the mood is going to be out there, whenever you go visit someone or whenever, a funeral is in the air. So, I booked my flight with my wife and, we head over, to the East Coast and we get there, we rent a car and, I'm in this like chipper mood, I like to joke around, I like to mess around and I have to be aware. And my wife's telling me the whole time, like, dude, turn your energy down, bro, because you can't be doing like your typical bullshit when you go over there. You got to be in the right mood. And I was like, yeah, like I'll figure it out. So I'm over there. We get over there. We finally arrive to the house, and I'm wondering what the energy is gonna be like. And I get out and, I couldn't help but feel slightly fulfilled. All my family was there. People were smiling, people were happy. My uncles were in the back around the bonfire having a few drinks, laughing and chatting. My aunts came up and gave me a hug. All of my cousins were there. And it was really nice. It was actually really great to see everyone. We were reflecting, we were giggling, we were just happy to be together. And I think my grandma would have liked that too, to see everyone there for her. And, it reminds me of this one story I told my guys when we were at my bachelor party. And it was a little of a bit of a dark sentiment, but I'm going to butcher it. But I forget who said this. And they said, it's hard to get everyone you love together in one room nowadays without something tragic having happened, right? Without some tragic event bringing us all together. And, that's okay. We take those moments when, there's a death in the family and we all get together and we all get to spend this time. But, you really have to count your blessings when you get the people you love together and it's on good vibes, because nowadays, you never know as you become an adult, people, have various courses of life they take. We're all very busy, and for better or for worse, we don't get to spend as much time as we used to together. And we got to make sure we're connecting, and making the most out of our situations. And I don't want to hop on my soapbox, but for me and my grandmother, she raised us, my brother and I, when we were infants, and as I got older, it was hard for me to communicate with her because there was a language barrier between us two. And, she had her own trials and tribulations. And, part of me wishes I did connect with her more, but I'm not regretful about it. And I learned a lot from her time here on this planet. So, I just take what I can from it. But one thing I did take was, spend time with those that you love, because you just never know, right? And that's some fucking filler, generic Hallmark shit, but it resonates with me really hard nowadays, especially when you have good friendships. Make the most out of them. Give them that care and that love, nurture them, because those are some of the best things you'll remember as you get older. So in any case, we'll go ahead, hop off that story, and we'll come to the book for today. And so we hop off of our most recent book, which was The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari by Robin Sharma. And we're going to come to The 12 Rules of Life by Jordan Peterson. So, at the early onset, it's a great book, a very, very interesting read. I did like it. I do have my own comments about the book and Jordan Peterson's way of stringing things together. But all in all, he makes some great points, and I'm really excited to go through this book. So there are 12 rules that he goes through, and we're going to go through 3 podcasts and do 4 rules each. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in. So the first rule is stand up straight with your shoulders back. Stand up straight with your shoulders back. And, he uses this analogy of like lobsters, right? And I'm going to go through that a little bit more. But essentially, when lobsters, fight, they try to flip each other over. And the one who wins, his ego or his ability to win like doubles. It becomes more powerful, his ability to win. And then the one who loses, their physical chemistry literally changes into being more this submissive crab, right? So we'll start there. Now, I've highlighted a few quotes, and I'm just going to go through them, and we're going to go through a little bit of deep dive. First quote: "The poor and stressed always die first, and in great numbers. They are also much more susceptible to non-infectious diseases such as cancer, diabetes, and heart disease." Now, why do we think that is, right? Is it because of their physical environment? Is it their lack of resources, their lack of access to knowledge? And, one thing I'll say is, I did a health literacy study in grad school, and we went to downtown Naperville, and we went to the south side of Chicago. So what we did was we printed out pictures of various fruits and vegetables, and underneath we asked the people if they can identify what that is, and if they can tell us how many times approximately in the past month they've consumed that fruit or vegetable. Now, in downtown Naperville, the results were as you might expect. Majority of the people knew all the fruits and vegetables, and they had eaten them at somewhat of a regular cadence, over the past month. But when you go to the south side, people can't identify lettuce. People can't identify bananas even. And that's very, very disturbing, And so you think about why someone, in these different demographics might have a higher risk of cancer, heart disease, and things like that. And to me, it's strictly because they just don't know how to eat, right? They don't have resources to get the proper food. That the old story of how organic food is just expensive, right? And McDonald's dollar menu is the dollar menu, right? And you can feed your whole family for, less than $10, whereas you can get maybe a head of organic lettuce for that much, So some food for thought. We go to our next quote. "Over the millennia, animals who cohabit with one another have learned many tricks to establish dominance while risking the least amount of possible damage." Now, this makes sense to me because you want to get the greatest rewards for the most efficient amount of energy that you expend. And in a way, that's what we're all trying to do, right? We want to get the most bang for buck, if you will, out of life. So, again, just laying the groundwork here for some good conversation. So when we come back to that lobster situation, a successfully flipped lobster will conclude that its opponent is capable of inflicting serious damage. So when lobsters fight, they try to flip each other over. Now, if a dominant lobster is badly defeated, its brain basically dissolves. And then it grows a new, what he calls subordinate's brain, and one that's more appropriate to its new and lowly position. So something changes in the lobster's mind once it's defeated, and you can see the theme that Jordan Peterson is trying to convey here. So going forward, less provocation is required for the defeated lobster to retreat. The theme is that once defeated, it takes a lot less to defeat that same being. It will retreat much sooner than it did in that first battle. And he goes forward and says, essentially in the lobster world, it's winner take all. And just like in real life, where the top 1% have as much wealth as the bottom 50%. And even female lobsters don't want to go through the process of getting to know another male lobster for procreation. So they go through that dominance hierarchy. And there's a lesson here, right? And when we're defeated, we act like those lobsters. Our posture changes. It drops. We feel threatened and victimized more than we felt prior. And at this rate, we feel weak and we can't even put up a fight when life throws these struggles at us. And we ultimately become prey to, other bullies in life and whatnot. And he uses the example of a poor person. After lengthy periods of being poor and oppressed, even money may not be able to help this person get out. So this is because they don't know what to do with that money once they get it. Because they've been poverty-stricken for so long, they're more likely to blow the money on something that will give them that instant gratification. So for example, if I were given $5,000, I might spend some of it, but I'll put some of it somewhere as an investment, right? To grow. But imagine someone who's poor and has been poor for a long time and they get $5,000. They're most likely going to blow it on, something that's going to instantly gratify them. Maybe a car, maybe nice shoes, whatever it might be, right? And I'm overgeneralizing here, but these are the things that, I have knowledge of because I'm not in that poverty, bracket, so I'm able to stack up throughout my paychecks and whatnot so that I know that, you got to live below your means. I have some more financial IQ in that way. I don't know much, but I know some things there, right? Because I haven't been at the poverty line for an extended period of time. Next quote. I have seen people with a particularly acute sensitivity to petty tyranny and over-aggressive competitiveness restrict within themselves all the emotions that might give rise to such things. Often, they are people whose fathers were excessively angry and controlling. Now, what a quote, right? I relate to this personally, okay? So my father was that, right? A little bit overly aggressive, controlling, and he always wanted us to be better than everyone in everything that we did. And nowadays, I really try to restrict that type of competitiveness inside of me, especially with my loved ones, because, I'm not necessarily trying to be better than my loved ones, but what I am is competitive with my former self. Always want to be better than who I was previously. And hopefully that's contagious to the people around me, and they want to be a better version of themselves. But I never want to put real competition between me and my friends because one, it's not apples to apples. We're all dealt different cards. And two, I don't feel like it sets you up for a healthy relationship, right? I never want, when people start having kids and families, they tend to compare their family to someone else's family, especially if that person is like their age, right? But it's like we don't need to do that, right? Everyone is trying to figure out what to do in this world, and none of us are running the same race. So it's like, why would I compare myself in a negative light to someone who I love? You know what I mean? I just want them to be genuinely selflessly happy, So we jump off that quote, go to our next one. If you say no early in the cycle of oppression and you mean what you say, then the scope on the part of the oppressor will remain properly bounded and limited. Now, this is an interesting one, right? So, growing up Indian, you really don't know how to say no, right? You don't even have the inkling to say no to your parents and things like that. And, Jordan Peterson puts a blanket statement out here just saying, if you say no early on, then it's going to stop them. And that's true, but it doesn't work like that in real life, right? It works like that in an adult relationship, right? With one of my friends, I can say no to them easily, and I can say no to my parents now easily because we're adults. But when you're younger, you don't have a sphere of influence, you don't have other people, you don't see other kids interacting with their parents, right? So you don't know exactly when to say no and if it's right and it's frowned upon, And I don't agree with that in children 100%. How does a kid even know that they're being oppressed? They don't have any, like I said, sphere of reference. When I was younger, I thought all dads behaved that way. I thought all kids like didn't really like their parents that much, and didn't really want to hang out with them too much. You know what I mean? But as I got older, I was like, man, some people really like want to spend all this time with their parents, and they get really excited to do stuff like that with their parents. And I'm like, something's fishy here, boys. In any case, we'll hop off that quote and go to the next one. Standing up means voluntarily accepting the burden of being. Your nervous system responds in an entirely different manner when you face the demands of life voluntarily. Standing up means voluntarily accepting the burden of being. Your nervous system responds in an entirely different manner when you face the demands of life voluntarily. Now, I think this is true, right? Standing up for yourself is something that we all need to do. And it doesn't always mean taking a stand. But if you feel threatened, you can maturely set boundaries with people. And it's tough to do that, right? One really interesting conversation a lot with Indian parents is telling them if you like drink or smoke weed or anything like that, right? And because you rely on your parents and you want their approval, as I see it in the Indian community, like I don't give a fuck about that really, but you want that, right? People want that. And if you have this conversation with them, they might like start judging you. They might think you're a bad person. And I've seen it happen. But you just got to stand up for yourself. And I think the main way to do that is become independent, Don't rely on them for money or anything like that, Get away, be your own person, and form a new relationship with them. Because if you continue to seek their approval, they're going to put you in that box and they're going to say, hey, look, you need to constantly like be obedient to me and try to seek my approval. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but if you want your independence of mind, you got to get away from that. You got to form your own personality and form your own beliefs and things like that. Talking about Indian families, there's no boundaries in Indian families, right? And when you set them, you're seen as like the bad apple. And that initial ripping off of the Band-Aid is going to be tough, but then you're able to truly just be your own person, have your own thoughts. And, from personal experience, that is very, very liberating. So we hop off that rule. That was rule number 1. The second rule we go to is rule number 2. Treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping. Treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping. Now, the first quote is, people are better at filling and properly administering prescription medication to their pets rather than to themselves. People are better at filling and properly administering prescription medication to their pets than to themselves. Now, my parents were way better at taking care of us than they did themselves, right? They often neglected their own health and their own happiness for us. And that led to some resentment as we got older and anger because they were giving up, quote unquote, their dreams for us, which we never really asked them to do in the first place, right? Second quote, pain matters more than matter matters. It is for this reason I believe that so many of the world's tradition regard the suffering attendant upon existence as the irreducible truth of being. Now that's a fucking mouthful. So what he's trying to say is we're conditioned to suffer, to feel like we need to suffer. And you can see that, in the parents' generation, they're just very like unable to do their own mental health, type triaging or type exercises, right? They self-sabotage, they put themselves through some pain, and it's like, why does your own happiness not matter to you, So in any case, just some food for thought. A couple of quotes. Chaos is the domain of ignorance itself. Chaos is unexplored territory. Order is explored territory. Order is tribe, religion, etc. It provides warmth and security. But you know what? Order can also lead to bad things when abused, such as the Holocaust, right? Chaos is when things go out of order. Now, when life becomes so intense that you become engrossed in what you're doing, you're truly in the moment. And he says this is the perfect border between order and chaos. We have order, but are surrounded by chaos, and that's the sweet spot. And that's a good point. It's a nice little way to describe that. Not sure if I agree with it, but it's interesting commentary, right? You learn new things by being in a known territory, but in a broader foreign territory, right? So that way you have some direction, you feel like you have some traction, and then you're not just completely out of the loop and on your own, and you don't feel that anxiety that the chaos brings. Next quote. Put one foot in something you have mastered and the other in something unknown. This will keep you alert and engaged. So that's what I just said, right? So you put your foot in one camp that you know, and then explore with the other foot. This will keep you grounded in familiarity while at the same time chartering out into new territories. It is far better to render a being in your care competent than to protect them. It is far better to render a being in your care competent than to protect them. Now this holds true for many scenarios. Like one is work, right? You're much better off as a manager, right? Going from an individual contributor to a manager, learning how to teach people, right? Learning how to communicate better. What you do is you train them so that way you don't have to monitor them. You give them the power of accountability and just to get their work done instead of micromanaging every little thing, because then you start taking on more people's jobs instead of being a leader. Now, even with your parents, right? We talk about talking to your kids about drugs, alcohol, sex, dating, all these things. If you don't teach them about these things, then they're not going to know. They're going to go learn from somebody else, or they're going to do some trial by fire type shit, you know? And your kids are going to resent you if you just shield them from these things. Share your knowledge and teach someone to do something for themselves. And I think that's the main way that we get better in this world, right? Just be willing to teach. Don't hoard secrets and things like that. And that way, people will be able-bodied and be able to manage things on their own. Next quote. How could man ever reach his full potential without challenge or danger? And this is great, you know? A lot of people seek comfort, and that's great. I do too in many regards. But everyone needs challenge. It keeps them young. It keeps you gritty. It keeps you scrappy. It keeps life interesting. And it teaches us to dig deep and find courage and strength. And I think the key is to find those right challenges for you when possible. Next quote. Only man will inflict suffering for the sake of suffering. And this is Jordan Peterson's definition of evil, right? And I can agree with this definition, right? Animals aren't evil. They don't hurt just to hurt. They hurt for sustenance and survival, right? Whereas man will inflict evil for the sake of evil. It seems that people often don't really believe that they deserve the best care. Mainly in the West, influenced by Christianity, we are taught to sacrifice our well-being and that we are sinners. But sacrifice doesn't mean to suffer silently and willingly when an organization or person demands more from us. This is direct support of tyranny. So again, an extreme statement here, but again, the essence of the statement is that people don't believe that they deserve better for themselves. And like he says, that could be an influence from Christianity because, you know, we are sinners. We are to give our lives. We are to suffer because Christ suffered and things like that. But, you know, I really encourage people to credit themselves and those around them when they're acting positively and with care, right? It's those small things, saying hello, holding doors, being positive, about face in life. These are basic principles that can change someone's entire outlook in life. You need to determine how to act towards yourself so that you are most likely to become and stay a good person, right? Figure out what your relationship with yourself is. You know, my parents always try to teach me morals and values, but a lot of them, they didn't showcase themselves. And like, how can I believe you if you're not eliciting that trait you're on your own? And that's the thing. Like, when you speak, when you give advice, if you do that, make sure you're following that, right? Make sure you have a code of conduct with yourself. That way, when you describe your life to someone, you describe your values, you're just talking about yourself and the things that, you know, you hold near and dear to you. So yeah, you know, hop off that soapbox. We'll get off rule 2, come to rule 3. Make friends with people who want the best for you. Now, first quote, sometimes when people have a low opinion of their own worth, or perhaps when they refuse responsibility for their lives, they choose a new acquaintance of precisely the type who proved troublesome in the past. Or perhaps they don't want the trouble of being better. Now, Jordan Peterson, at this time in the book, he uses this view of marijuana and like his friend who like smoked a bunch and ruined his life. And I get you have a skewed view of marijuana, my dude, but marijuana helps people, in a lot of capacity. It can also, hurt people, and you just happen to pull the straw on someone who had a bad experience and might have, quote unquote ruin their lives. But we can't like make an overarching general statement, at least to marijuana. What he's trying to say here, right, is that essentially is not everyone who is failing is a victim, and not everyone at the bottom wishes to rise. Even though many people do, many manage it. And it's not easy to distinguish between someone who wants better and needs help and someone who is exploiting a willing helper, right? Like, I've had friends who complain about their situations nonstop, right? Whether it's a shitty boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, just something about their job. And that's fine, right? We're all here to support each other and hear our complaints thoroughly and triage them. But you have to realize, does this person want a solution to that problem or do they not, right? Because after a while of continuous, toxicity, and, shit talking and just complaining, it is exactly that. It's toxic, right? We all have to be solution oriented in life. If we're down in the dumps, we have to figure out how to get out of it. There's one girl, I knew from many years ago who broke up with one of my best friends, and we don't really talk anymore. Me and my good friend, I kept in touch with her, and she's great. She's one of my best friends now. And, one story I'll use is that, she just seems to not want to take charge of her life because it would force her to do some self-reflecting. She busies herself by taking care of these people who get in these drunk arguments with their significant others, and she becomes like this mediator, right? And she ignores her own well-being, right? Her own personal growth, because she wants to deal with these people while they're drunk fighting. And like, I'm not here to judge anything like that, but sometimes I tell her, I'm like, dude, just leave them be and focus on yourself, right? Like, you're going to spend all your energy dealing with them, and you're not going to have any time to really open a book, go travel, make some new experiences. You're just going to be caught up in that. Now, that's okay, right? That's okay. I'm going to love her regardless. She's like one of my best friends. But it's like, hey man, let's move forward. Let's try our best. And at the end of the day, it's your choice. But if you complain regularly about these situations, I'm going to offer you a solution. And if you don't want to take it, then that just means you want to stay down there. And that's okay. We can all do that. So next quote is, before you help someone, you should find out why that person is in trouble. You shouldn't merely assume that he or she is a noble victim of unjust circumstances and exploitation. So the question to ask is this person truly a victim? Have they tried to change their situation for the better? Do they always say, next time I'll make a move, next time I'll get out of this relationship, or next time I'll say something, right? You should choose people who want things to be better, not worse. You're not morally obliged to support someone who is making the world a worse place. Now, people who will uplift you and keep you motivated, right? It doesn't always have to be a friend who is constantly pushing you every time you interact, but people who empower you, who lead by example, who are running their own race and doing it to the best of their ability. To me, that shit is contagious. I like to talk to people who are passionate about what they do, even if they're not quote unquote successful. I just like hearing that because it gives me the reason to keep doing what I'm doing, right? It's kind of weird for me to hop on and just, monologue for 30, 40 minutes on my podcast, but it really forces me to deep dive into my personality. And, I don't want to say something on here that I'm not following myself, right? I don't want to like preach anything if I'm not doing it myself. And it keeps me open to constantly talking about new things, not worrying about public speaking, and things of that sort. I talk about fitness, photography, traveling, many more things. And, I just want to make sure that I'm radiating that positivity into the world. Anyway, I'm going to hop off that, come to our last rule for today, which is rule number 4, compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not who someone else is today. Very powerful statement. First quote, it's also unlikely that you're playing only one game. You have a career, you have friends, you have family, you have personal projects, artistic endeavors, athletic pursuits. You might consider judging your success across all the games you play. And finally, you might come to realize that the specifics of the many games you're playing are so unique to you, so individual, that comparison to others is not appropriate. Look at that. Look at that powerful statement right there. So you take a look at everything that you do and the cards that you were dealt, right? And try not to use any of it as an excuse. Once you do that, you realize nobody can really do what you do. So you're stronger than you know. So why compare yourself to other people? People were all dealt different hands and start at different points in life. So it's never apples to apples. Stop comparing yourself because it's only going to lead to melancholy at some point, right? How much can you sacrifice to your partner before generosity becomes resentment? You have to get to know yourself first. Treat yourself like a stranger. And you know what? Your partner should encourage lifelong self-study and continuous reflection, right? I did a podcast on the book, 25 Relationship Habits, and this is one of them, right? Self-study. Your partner should encourage that. Get to know yourself, know your tendencies, be objective, and this way you can be your best self for you and for others. And, ask yourself, what do you want? Do you fairly negotiate with yourself? Dare to be dangerous, dare to be truthful, and dare to articulate yourself and express. And that's the thing, right? It's tough to be truthful. Some people might not resonate. Some people might stop being your friends. But if you're being honest and people don't like it, that's on them, right? And obviously that's a gray concept there, but you should never be scared to express yourself in a mature manner. It takes confidence, it takes guts, but people will love you more for it. Some might not, but those who really do love you are going to support you, gas you up for self-expressing. I will for sure. That's how you deal with the overwhelming complexity of the world. You ignore it while you concentrate minutely on your private concerns. You see things that facilitate your movement forward. And that's the thing. I personally stay in my world and engage in the real world to help others express as well, right? Help others be the best version of themselves by being the best version of yourself. Run your race, do your own thing, and make sure that you're constantly trying to be better, And with that, nothing might come of it, right? But it's just a journey, right? Being your best self, being able to articulate and not being afraid to express. And that's something that I can't stress enough. If your life's not going well, perhaps it is your current knowledge that is insufficient, not life itself. Learn more. Talk to people, understand their journeys, gain perspective. I promise it will be euphoric and you'll gain fulfillment through this exercise. We have to become conscious of our desires, prioritize them, and arrange them into hierarchies. You realize that it is a mistake to aim for a better life if it comes at the cost of worsening someone else's. Aim for the improvement of being. To journey happily may well be better than to arrive successfully. And I love that, right? The journey of life is fun. Like once I got out of my parents' house and, embarked upon this new journey, I realized it's just so much fun to be me right now, to meet new people, to get into interesting conversations, to try to be more fit, to try to be more mentally fit, and just to try to be a better person overall, and form these habits, form these pillars of my personality. I have stories to tell. I make memories with my buddies and my wife, and love. I believe aside from wealth, is something that everyone needs to put their soul at ease, right? In order to rest easy, you need love in your life, right? No amount of wealth is going to do that for you. So in any case, really passionate about those last few quotes. But that's all I got for you guys today. I hope you guys are enjoying the podcast. Remember to leave me any feedback. And remember, only positivity. Thanks, guys.